Hello and welcome to Chasing Care. And on today's episode, we're speaking with Lucy Buxton. She's worked in social care for over 32 years and now spends her time helping individuals and businesses achieve their goals by developing a success mindset. Lucy is a trainer of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, a coach, a trainer of hypnotherapy. She's also a nurse following in her grandmother's footsteps, who was a Red Cross nurse in the Second World War. Now, life has not always been easy for Lucy. She's had many ups and downs, like most of us. And now she's able to reflect on her own experiences to support others in social care. When she's not supporting folk in social care, she coaches young people, loves her garden, and walks for hours with her dog, Oti. So I guess we're very lucky that she's found a way to sitting in front of us today. Lucy, it's great to have you on Chasing Care.
It's great to be here.
Have I painted a great picture?
I suppose it depends if you're able to make pictures in your mind.
Oh, yeah. The question for another day. What are the challenges for businesses and individuals in care? Big question. Do we have a simple answer?
It is a big question. And I think it's a question that will take a lot longer than we've got today to answer. And there are the obvious answers and there are the less obvious answers. So the obvious answers are the tail end of a global pandemic, which is no longer a global pandemic, a cost of living crisis, even though if you wandered into the pub where my daughter worked, you wouldn't think there was a cost of living crisis. We have a massive hole in the bucket of social care where staff have just left, but that's true for lots of sectors. And we have, I would suggest, a shift in where people are thinking and how things are happening. And, you know, the fact that we've got lots with the NHS with strikes and pressures, and then we've got the never-ending changes of the regulator, and when they're going to be the changes and when they're not. And then that constant, ever-revolving pressure of making sure that we can be safe and fearing the next inspection.
You've been around the care sector for a long time. What do you focus on? What sort of businesses? Is it home care, care homes? Or where do you focus yourself?
Oh, well, it depends really. I can work with individuals, domiciliary care businesses, care homes, kids services, even mental health services, because I can work with the individuals and I can work with the teams. It's all a similar principle and process about how people do what they do, which comes on to, I think, the other problem that faces people in social care today is the fact that there's a lot of people doing what they did years ago and it doesn't work anymore. And it's that mindset of being fear-driven for the next inspection rather than being motivated towards fabulous results, which means the next inspection's just a walk in the park.
That's interesting. Do you physically see the change in people that get this now, or
Yes.
is everybody just still living in the past?
So most of us listening to this will have a mobile phone or a piece of technology that every now and again there's a notification that says you need to update this device. We have to update its operating system. If you think about humans, how often do we update our operating system? We are navigating territory with a map from years ago. It might be that as a person, you are going to work, doing what you did, doing what you do, doing what you've always done and what you'll always do, based on how you learnt to do that years ago. And unless you, for some reason, have had cause to change how you do stuff, you'll continue to do the same stuff, which is potentially why we hear quite often, that's the way we've always done it. And it's also why people find change difficult. So it's really important that we upgrade our thinking and upgrade that map. I see a massive change. I see a massive change in an individual. I can see a massive change in business outcomes. I can see massive changes in the lives of the person that I work with or the business that I work with, because there's the ripple effect. I can see not only changes in how they do what they do, I can hear the changes in the tonality of their voice. I can see the changes in their posture, their skin tone, their colour of their face, because ultimately people end up letting go of stuff that they've carried for years. And you could suggest that they look lighter.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a change of colour of skin. Wow. I mean, let's break this down. If people are running a care business and they've got issues, are they willing really to expose themselves in such an open way? Or do you have to dig this out of them so they understand the challenges that they've built up within themselves?
Many of the people that have heard me talk before or follow me will have heard this story, but for those that haven't, I will share this story. A man walks down the street and he sees a chap with a dog. And the dog's whimpering. And he asks the owner, why is the dog whimpering? And he says, he sat on a nail. He sat on a nail? Yeah, he sat on a nail. The chap says, why doesn't the dog get off the nail? Because it's not painful enough yet.
Okay.
Let's just let that sit for a minute. So people have to be ready to move forward. They have to be of a mindset that's like growth or being stretched. If they're sat in the comfort zone, which 9 times out of 10 isn't actually comfortable, they will stay where they are. Our brains try to keep us safe, and our brains, the change is scary. A lot of people will choose to stay where they are because doing something different is scary because we haven't been there before. People will get out of that situation when the motivation to get out of the situation is great enough, like the dog. When it hurts enough, the dog will get off the nail.
It's a bit worrying, though, isn't it, if we think about it? That the only reason people are willing to change is if the pain is so prevalent in their lives that they feel that they have no option. There must be a lot of people running care businesses that just doing the same thing because they used to do it that way. I mean, we didn't go to school, did we, and do a GCSE in running a home care business or a GCSE in any form of healthcare. You learnt it from people that taught you how to do it.
It is worrying because we're looking after people's lives at the end of the day, and there's massive responsibility, but also it's really sad because people could have far better business outcomes, financial outcomes. They could have a far greater sense of pride in what they did or what they do. But you have to look at the reason for why people went into the business in the first place. So did they just go in to make a bit of money because it was nice and to top up the pension pot? Or are they going in because actually they want to make a difference? They want to have really good outcomes for the people that they care for, and they want to make money. We don't look at the values of a provider when they set up a business. We know that a registered manager goes through a process of interview to check out if they're the right person to have the registration, but that isn't the case necessarily for all providers. So you have to look at the values, the reasons for why people go into the business in the first place. And this is why you see such a vast spread across the sector if you've got a proportion that are outstanding and that continually achieve the outstanding. You've got some that are good, stay as good, some that are good and go to outstanding, some that are good and slip back. And then you will always have those businesses that will just continually be requires improvement and inadequate because the values of the business are not ones that are striving for more, have a different mindset, can see that the problem is the way that it is. Is it difficult for me to get people to come to me to talk through their problems? I'd say no. I'd also say yes, because it's that a lot of people sit and watch before they're ready to get off the nail. And that might take months, it might take weeks, it might take years. And when people come to me, because of my knowledge and my experience and the insight that I have and that I've developed over a long time, I'm able to unpick those bits and help people get to the root cause. And that's where NLP is really good, because I'm very much able to listen to the words that people use and then use language in a way to get to the root cause of the problem. It's a yes and a no. Sometimes it can be difficult. Sometimes it can be easy.
For the listener, just paint a picture for me then. I know there's going to be many different versions of what you're seeing, but just give me an example, will you, of maybe a care home that you go into and the attitude of the people at that point as you walk through the door, and how you unpackage that and how you guide them into being more open and more aware of who they are and what they can do in a different way. Paint a picture. That would be very interesting.
So let's make something up. Business that's got tiny little care business, got few homes, poor occupancy, high agency costs, poor retention, and problems with the regulator. You know, it could be that you've got some requires improvement, some inadequates. And I wander in and I will look right from before I wander in. I will have a little mooch around what's on the internet. I'll do my due diligence. I'll have a little look at what's on Google and, you know, these different places where you can place reviews. And I'll kind of rate what I see, what that internet, what the shop window says. And then I'll have a little mooch at the website, and does that work on a mobile phone, and does it work on a computer as well? So I'm having a little bit of a window shop, and then I'll turn up, and even before I've walked through the door, I'll have a window shop in the car park, because we have to remember this is exactly what the regulators are doing. It's exactly what your quality assurance officers are doing. They're looking. So I might look and say, oh, your bins aren't locked and there's a squirrel living in the one. And then I might walk up to your front door and think, is it clean? How long does it take till you answer the doorbell? And when eventually I get through the door, have you asked who I am? Have you asked for some ID? You know, I'm using my compliance and quality knowledge to just pick out what's going on. But I'm just feeling the atmosphere. So as I walk through, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I sensing? What am I feeling? Are staff looking at me, or are they just walking around with their heads down? Do they actually go, morning? And I'm paying attention to what's going on, and I'm just picking up a picture of what's going on in the room. And then it's just about listening to what's said to me and seeing whether the same story is repeated. So is it that, oh, well, it's been terrible for 3 years and it's been really difficult, and I'm told the same story 5 times within the first half an hour of sitting with the person? So I can then start to understand that that person has got a lot of negative emotions stored, and that's how they're navigating their world. And then I just gradually unpick it, and I can ask questions, and maybe if I start to work with the person, give them a little bit of work to do at home, and it might be, I just want you to go and draw me a picture, or I might want you to go and listen to this, or I might want you to go and read this article. And then it's just about conversation and me paying attention to what the person says and how they do what they do.
My guess is that, I mean, I've been around the industry for a while, but when I was younger, a lot younger, I was a chartered surveyor, and we had continuing professional development, which helped us develop as human beings and as professionals. I get the sense that in the care industry, it's not really there to help people. So they flounder for a very long time because they're not actually required to do anything to improve themselves.
Absolutely. I think Well, you've got a proportion, haven't you, of nurses that need to do CPD, revalidation, reflective practice. And certainly in social care, kind of lessons learned is something that's come out more kind of recent years, and root cause analysis. But it's a sector that is massively regulated. And when you're in a position where you're constantly being inspected, and your brain's going to fear it, it's going to be running on away from motivation. It's going to be a less positive thing for you to experience, rather than I'm really excited about demonstrating how fabulous we are. So a toward motivation. And I think that makes it less easy for people to ask for help, because it's that perception that they may have of, if I ask for help, then I failed, or I'm not doing very well. There's also something else as well, is that we're a sector where you follow the rules and you do as you're told. We're very policy driven. And that value-based kind of approach, very judgmental. So there has to be that element of, and there's a lot of comparison in the sector, you know, how many homes in your area are outstanding, or, oh, so-and-so's just got an inadequate down the road. And we've got to admit it, social care is a village, you know, everybody knows everybody. And there is a lot of judgment passed. So if we're passing judgment as people, then we're kind of expecting everybody to pass judgment on us. You know, what we perceive in something else, we're kind of projecting from ourselves, and that then stops us asking for help.
Interesting that you talk about the quality side and that we're highly regulated. Do you think it's a fear culture?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think it's intended to be that way, but it absolutely is. But when you've got, say, a home that's really struggling, and they're getting lots of safeguardings and lots of injuries to people, and people ending up in hospital, and lots of really unpleasant stuff, that's going to stir emotions of people going in, and it's really difficult as a human being to approach an inspection or approach an audit and just be completely subjective or objective, either which way. So if you know that there's been a really bad incident in a home, you're going to be going in and looking for really bad stuff, because your thoughts have been pre-framed by what you're looking for, rather than actually just going in and going, oh, actually, do you know what? Let me see what's here. Let me find out. Let me go in with an open mindset. And yes, that's how the regulators and quality assurance should work. But we're human beings, so how can we ask them to work in that way unless they make the effort to clean up their thinking? So if they've got lots of sadness or hurt or anger stored, then they're going to be navigating life with lots of anger, sadness and fear and guilt, and potentially projecting that on other people.
I can see that. And I guess that you must spend a lot of time talking to individuals that are on the wrong path mentally at the moment, perhaps even businesses that require improvement. Do you see that you could add value to the companies that feel as if they're doing okay for themselves and they don't necessarily take on board what you're doing at the moment around hypnotherapy and NLP? I mean, how do you see that fitting into companies that are good rather than those that are in need of improvement, for example?
You know, if they just want to stay and be good, that's fine. And no, that's cool. If they want more and they want to think differently and their values are different and they've got different motivations that are towards getting better outcomes for those individuals, it absolutely can fit in. And, you know, I've worked with many people where managers were on the edge of walking away. I've spoken to somebody this morning. They're burnt out. And they could walk away from their job tomorrow, even today. And working with me, I know that person can change the way that they think. And then that owner hasn't got to pay a horrendous recruitment fee. They also haven't got to deal with the aftermath of losing a registered manager and the cost that that creates for the business, with staff leaving, lack of consistency, regulatory problems, bed occupancy problems. You know, I worked with a manager a few years ago. The home was outstanding rated. They were in a pickle. They've gone on to win so many awards, and the impact that it is having, not just on them, but on their staff, on their staff's families, on the residents' families, on the commissioners, because commissioners know that they can place people in this home and they'll be safe and they'll be cared for, the local community. It's a huge ripple effect. It's not just one person it impacts. To think, it may be a different way of doing this.
Last week was Mental Health Awareness Week, and there was lots of people posting lots of stuff about how important mental health is. But in reality, I'm not sure that companies actually take a lot of notice of it day to day. I think it looks good on their websites, and caring about their own staff, be it the registered manager, worrying about the nominated individual business owner about how they're thinking mentally. I just don't feel that it's real. Now I'm talking to somebody that lives it day in, day out. I mean, am I lying to myself?
Don't think you are. I'm always banging on about mental health, mental well-being and mental ill health, because we have mental health, we have emotional health, we have spiritual health, we have physical health. And mental ill health is just something very close to my own heart, because of my own journey that I've been through in my life with loved ones. It's so much bigger. It's great having Mental Health Awareness Week. We have to create awareness. But 1 week doesn't do it. And a poster on a staff room wall doesn't do it. It's about being aware all the time and paying attention all the time, because you have your mental health all the time. It's not something that you can choose to have one day and not the next. It's around us all the time. And it is so much also bigger because of the stigma that's surrounding society. You know, we're not many years since women who were pregnant outside of wedlock were locked away in those horrible places called asylums. So it's not just about a poster in a staff room or a week where we talk about it. It's really understanding that all of us, every single one of us, could struggle with our mental ill health at some point in our lives. My grandfather, he had PTSD. He was a Red Cross ambulance driver and went into awful places after the end of the Second World War. My mum, she struggled all her life with depression. She had ECT. My daughter, she was sectioned a few years ago because she's got a condition called PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I've had postnatal depression twice. It happens. There's nothing special about me and my family.
And you're absolutely right. And there's a lot of companies that need to have a serious think about this. And the interesting thing that you said is that the sort of work that you get involved with inside of companies doesn't just improve the well-being of an individual, it also increases the well-being of the residents, the people that are being cared for, because of the attitude of the care worker and the business owners change. That's
massively so, massive. Well, we know that when we have a poor culture in the business, that lots of things will happen. Lots of really simple clinical indicators will show you that there's something going wrong. Weight loss, poor fluid intake, so far more people with infections, higher increase of falls, accidents. It's not just the retention of the staff that falls apart. It's the impact on the individuals. They don't get to live the lives that they have a right to continue to live in the environment that they're in with the abilities that they have. Just imagine being in a building where nobody smiles at you. I mean, that is just horrendous. If I was, at home with my two big kids and they walked through the door and didn't talk to me all day, didn't acknowledge me and just grunted at me, I think I'd get pretty lonely and down quite quickly.
So is that not normal then? My two kids, they just walk and go to their bedrooms and they're grumpy, except at meal times.
Well, you could say that's something that's perceived to happen when teenagers, but mine are, kind of, luckily my son's come out of that age now. My daughter's kind of wandering to the point where I just think another 12 months, please. It is massive in how, as individuals, how we can make such big differences just having that awareness about ourselves. And cultures are set from the business owners. It's so very easy to point a finger of blame at the registered manager, but there will be a reason for why, coming from the leadership at the top of the business, why things have happened the way that they have.
The companies out there, there's thousands of them. Home care, care homes, nursing homes, living care, supported living. If you were talking to a business owner in that area, they could be good, they could be outstanding, they could be in need of improvement. What should they be thinking about?
Work on themselves first. Absolutely work on, clean up their stuff, the stuff that's stored in their brain.
That's great advice. Is work on yourself first.
Yeah, work on yourself first. It is the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship that you'll ever have in your life. You've got to work on your body, your fitness. You put the fuel in the car, it'll run properly. You put the wrong fuel in the car, you call out fuel medic, don't you? And that relationship with yourself. You cannot have good, effective, wholesome relationships with other people if you haven't worked on yourself first. So how can we be effective in the businesses that we run, where we are expected to be the best that we can be, and the behavior that we run, we model so everybody else copies us? If you've got a provider that's got his head in the bucket, stuck in the problem, not being particularly pleasant, everybody else is going to copy and do the same thing. Unless that person, there'll be the odd few people that go, actually, I don't want to be here anymore. This isn't healthy. I can't be around this. Doesn't align with me. And then they leave.
It's a big step for a person, though, isn't it? I don't drink alcohol. I haven't done for 4 years. It took me quite a while to be able to eventually say to myself, no, stop drinking. I wasn't an alcoholic before anybody starts asking the question. I was just sick and tired of it because I knew my health wasn't brilliant because of drinking. I knew that I wasn't performing at 100% in my work environment. I wanted to change. And my change was I cut out alcohol. Work for me. Thank you. I feel great. People are running businesses. It's a big thing, isn't it, to actually accept that you need some guidance. You're going externally to find that support that you need. How do people make that step, in your opinion? What really triggers them to say, okay, that's it, I now need Lucy?
Go back to the dog. The nail has to be painful enough. It has to be at the point where something, it could be that the loved one just says, you need to get help or we're done. Or they just turn around and go, I can't take this anymore. There'll be an individual point. For me, going back when my whole world turned upside down, I took myself off to a counsellor. The thing that did it was the lawnmower. I could deal with the big stuff with my mom and care for my mom. I was dealing with my daughter, fine. The 18-year-old cat, I was dealing with him as he was dying, fine. I could not deal with the fact that I went to get the lawnmower out and it wouldn't work. And I just couldn't deal with it. And that was it. It was just that bit that tipped my bucket over. I just had no more space. And I just knew that I needed to go and put that somewhere. So I found a counsellor and I turned upon a doorstep and she said, what are you here for? I said, well, my mum's just died. My daughter has just tried to end her own life. I've been through a horrendous time at work. And I've left. The cat's dying and the lawnmower was broke. And she went, okay then. And that was it.
Fascinating, isn't it, all of this that we're talking about today? And we've come to the end of our conversation. But just like an iceberg, we've touched the tip of it, I'm absolutely sure. If anybody wants to find out more about LJB Consulting, how do they find you, Lucy?
Well, you can find me on Facebook under Lucy Buxton, and you can just get in touch. I've got a little page on Facebook as well, LJB Coach Consultancy. You can also find me on LinkedIn. As long as I'm not in the sin bin, because I've been in the sin bin all weekend, I got locked out of my account, and people message me and go, Lucy, you're missing. So yeah, track me down on LinkedIn. And yeah, you can find me at the care shows usually, wandering around with my branding on the back of my top, and I'm hard to miss.
I think I might have to come along to a care show to see if I can spot you in the crowd then.
No, you will. You'll absolutely spot me. Yeah, definitely. Believe you me, the branding on the back of the hoodie is big enough. You cannot not see it. That's because I'm not one for selling. So it's easy to just walk around my brand on my back, and then I don't have to worry about it.
Lucy, it's been fun. Thank you so much for coming on to the Chasing Care podcast. And we'll be speaking again sometime soon in the future.
Well, there's the rest of the iceberg to explore, isn't there?
Absolutely. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.